What can you learn by looking at another teacher's weekly schedule? Well, it turns out you can learn a lot. Today, you are going to get a look at my weekly schedule. When I taught kindergarten, we're going to take a look at it and go through it by step, by chunk, by chunk, by chunk. And then you can make your own schedule armed with the knowledge you have learned today. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, when I taught kindergarten, I liked to do a few things, and you're going to see some themes happening in my schedule. And feel free to steal the themes for yourself and make them work, tweak it for your classroom. Now, you just can't copy my schedule, right? Because everybody starts at different times, ends at different times, lunches at different times, PE, library, if you have the luxury of that. All those things are different. Also, some states require different amounts of time to teach each subject. And so yours is going to look a little bit different, but the philosophy of a good schedule, you will start to see it. The first thing is, in the mornings, I would have a chunk time. And you can see that this was a very consistent chunk. It happened Monday through Friday. The very first thing we did at 8:15, they would come in and do their morning work. The routines I had in place and the procedures, they knew exactly what to do for 15, 20 minutes. I did not talk to the whole group for that time. In fact, that time I set aside to touch base with usually my little bit of a tougher kids, touching base with them, talking to them, getting down, kind of seeing how they're doing for that day. Making sure they knew that I was rooting for them, that I cared about them, that I was happy that they were there, that this was a safe place, and that I expected a very good day from myself and from them, okay? So I touched base with those kids. The rest of my class was on autopilot. It gave me the luxury of that special time with those kids. Then we hopped right into our morning meeting time. I had this on autopilot as well. I turned on a song. They knew exactly what to do with their morning work. They got themselves their chairs pushed in and they were standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, our class chant, our greeting for the day. Everything started, and then we would go to morning meeting on the carpet. It was like clockwork. It was the same every single day. They knew exactly what to expect and they knew how to follow that procedure. When they got to the carpet for the morning meeting, after about the 5-minute little introductory part, they knew exactly what was going to happen. We would have a message. We would talk about some of the skills. I would introduce some games that we were going to be playing. We'd play some games. We would really do some intensive stuff to set us up for the rest of the day. It was kind of a front-loading time for me, that I would tell them what's happening. I would show them some of the games. We would practice whole group some of the games, some of the activities, so that they knew what was going to happen. It helped with my behavior, particularly my tougher kids. They knew what was going to happen. It was awesome. Now, that morning meeting time was a time that it was pretty intensive. Were they getting up to go to the bathroom? No. Were they chatting with their neighbor? Not unless I had them doing that. It was very intensive. And so, as you can see, it was a pretty short amount of time. At the max, 15, sometimes 20 minutes, but really max 15 minutes. If you have your ducks in a row and you have that well planned out, you can make it happen, okay? Then we jumped into writing. And you're saying, Angie, you went from a really intensive time to another really intensive time? Nope, because our writing time was a little bit more fluid. In fact, between our morning meeting and our writing time, we had a bathroom break, which involved some music and getting up and doing some stretching and things like that, and then sitting back down for a very short writing lesson, and then off to our writing. And writing in my classroom was a very active things. Sometimes they were making posters for around the room. Sometimes they were writing books with a partner. Sometimes they were writing a menu, or so many different things, but it was a very active time in my classroom. So we went from a very intense time to a very active time. And you'll see that again and again. Intense, active, intense, active. And that's what you need for your kindergarten and first grade students. You cannot expect them to sit and do a skill for an extended amount of time without a little bit of a break. Okay? You just can't. It is torture on them, and it is torture on you, and it is not a good use of your time. So breaking it up and allowing them to have a little bit of a mental break and move their bodies, which is so important, their learning will excel. And then after our active writing time, we would go into a reading time. And this reading time was given to me by the district. It was a set curriculum. I knew exactly what I needed to do, the skills that we needed to work on, the whole group lesson, and I tried to make it as fun as possible, but we all know it's just not as fun as you would like, right? And so right after reading, we would have recess, another moving time, and then coming in, they would have snack. Now you see on my thing here, we have snack. We ate quite a bit throughout our day. We had a snack in the morning, and we had a snack in the afternoon, and then of course lunch. And I think good, healthy snacks for students throughout the day is a good option. If a child did not bring a healthy snack from home, I had some healthy snacks at school available for them. Then after snack, we had skill stations. And if you know me, I love stations. I love stations. In fact, if you want more videos on how to run your stations, go ahead and take a look in the description down below. I'll put some starter station videos for you, and you can get started with your own stations. Why do I love stations so much? Because the learning is intense. The independence, the learning that they can do by themselves as well is amazing. And I loved having small groups and seeing my class work together in pairs on skills that they needed to have work on. It was a magical time. I love stations. In fact, you will see stations actually 2 more times in my day. We did stations a lot. Okay, so we had stations, and then we had our downtime again for math. And so I would do a quick district provided lesson and materials, and then we would often have things like library PE and things like that. You'll notice on the schedule that I have some of these in white. Why do I do that? Because you know how it is. People come to your door and you're not in your room, and they're like, well, where are they? And if they can see quickly where you're at, then they can go find you. But also, I loved having a bunch of these copied off and in my teacher binder, because people would come and say, well, can we have a meeting, principals? You know, I don't know why they don't know this sometimes. Well, let's set up a time to meet. Okay, here's my schedule. What time works for you? Oh, well, you have lunch from 11 to 11:35. Yeah, but they're coming back from music. And when they're coming back from music, we come back at 11. And then since it's snowing, we have to get all ready for lunch. So that'll take 10 minutes. And then after I get them into the cafeteria and get them sat down, I have exactly 10 minutes. Is that going to be enough time for you to have that meeting with me? And they look at you like, you have 10 minutes for lunch? And you're like, yeah. And I do have to use the restroom in there. So actually you have 5 minutes. And I have to check my voicemail. I have to check my email. And, oh, well, lunch? No. Of course not. Another good place to have that is by your door. I used to frame it and put it by my door so that people could see, as well as the front office and anybody else who wanted a copy of our schedule. It was a nice thing to send home in print form to parents at the beginning of the year too, because many times they would say, well, what is your schedule? And while it is on the district website, it is a little tricky to find, right? So if you give this to them, they have it available. A lot of people would just put it on their fridge or take a picture of it for their phone, and they would have it available. Can you send it digitally? Sure, but it's nice to have something in their hand. Then after lunch, they would have a rest time, and lunch is active. I wanted them to come down and be quiet again. And what kind of behavior are they coming in with after a hurried lunch and a crazy recess time? There's problems, right? And so you need a little bit of a chunk of time that you can address those issues. So we had a little bit of a rest time. It was not my favorite time, but it did give me time to address those issues. And because of our routines and our procedures, kids knew what to do. I didn't have to do anything. They came in, they knew exactly what to do. I could tackle some of those issues from the playground, or even better, what I used to do was do a little bit of assessment with my students during that time. I could pull them one-on-one and do a quick 5-10 minute assessment with 1 or 2 kids a day. And those assessments really helped me to drive instruction during station times. So speaking of station times, do you see more station times coming up? I bet you do. All right. So after our rest time, we would have calendar time, and I did calendar time very unconventionally because I hated calendar time. So if you want to have a video on how I did calendar time, give me a thumbs up and put a comment below so I know that there's some interest there. Then math stations, surprise, surprise. So we had math stations during that time where, again, they were independent doing skills for math, and I would pull kids who needed extra help. And sometimes, truth be known, sometimes during the math stations, I would also work on some reading skills. After math stations, we had every day a specific social studies or science themed unit that we were doing. And a lot of times we would group together with other classrooms and do a big theme, super fun. And then time for recess, and then time for another snack, and then time for free choice centers. That time was my time to again connect with my students, really talk to them, get down, get to know them. So it's kind of like a sandwich, right? At the beginning of the day, I was really connecting with my students. At the end of the day, I was really connecting with my students. I found that if I didn't do that, I remember lying in bed some nights and saying, did I even talk to that little sweet Maddie? I'm not sure I did. She's so sweet and quiet, always does everything she needs to do. Did I even talk to her today? I don't think I did. Until I started to really concentrate on making connections in the morning and making connections in the afternoon before they left. Then it was cleanup time and a story time, and that procedure used to be one of my worst times. I hated it because it was chaotic. It seemed like kids would get hurt, kids would cry, kids would have issues. I hated it. And so I had to devise something that would help me get through that time. And the end of the day actually became a time that just was on autopilot. It became so easy. Everyone knew what to do. I had a little teeny bit of free time even then, and it was great that I could clean up my messes and kind of prep a little bit for the next day, start laying some stuff out, start writing on the board some stuff, whatever I needed to do. I had about 7 minutes that I could do that. What can a teacher do in 7 minutes? Like everything. I hope you got some ideas from this. If you have any questions, jump down in the comments below, ask some questions, and I'll see if I can elaborate and get them answered. I am rooting for you. Having a good weekly schedule is one of the keys into having a classroom that is well run, happy kids. They know what to expect. You know what to expect. Parents know what to expect. Administrators know what to expect. It's really just a template for the awesomeness that is to come. My name is Angie. I was in education for 25 years. I am now working with people just like you to build the classroom of their dreams. I want you to remember something. The creator of the universe loves you. It's very important that you remember that. And I think you're pretty amazing too. I really do. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.